morning. Welcome to Facebook Friday Live on July 10th. We are in Browns Bay of Lake West Okoboji with a very special guest who knows what this lake looks like underwater. I'm with Lloyd Cunningham, and he's going to explain how he got into this business of living underwater here at Okoboji. And when you start talking, you can take off your mask. I'll maintain some social distance. So you can go ahead and take off your mask and introduce yourself and tell us about...
Okay. Good morning, and thank you and the Lakeside Lab for the opportunity. There's very few things I'd rather talk about than diving West Lake Okoboji. My name is Lloyd Cunningham. I've been a diver since 1992. Actually, I was certified right here in this lake. It's my favorite place to dive. I have over 400.
And you've been all over the world diving.
I have been.
And this is your favorite place.
Yeah, I have been all over the world diving, and this is my favorite place to dive. And I'll tell you why in just a minute if we have enough time. I have over 400 log dives in this lake, so I know it quite well. First of all, you need to know that diving is an underwater sport. It requires certain equipment here, which I'm going to share with you so that you can do it safely. The first thing you have to have is a mask so that you can see underwater. You have to have fins so you can propel yourself while you are underwater. And then you need to have, of course, a tank of air. This unit here has got 3 pieces on it. I wanted to explain to you if I could do so quickly. First, of course, is the tank of air. This is compressed air. What we breathe on land is what's in the side of this tank. In addition,
can you tell us what you mean by compressed air?
Well, it's just the natural air that we breathe. There are no gases in here. There's no oxygen here. There's no nitrogen here outside of the percentage that would be in air. It's compressed to 3,000 pounds, which means that it's about the size, if you would let that out, about the size of a large telephone booth.
And hopefully people remember what a telephone booth is.
Yes.
With this generation.
I guess that's right. I learned that a long time ago.
Or maybe an outhouse.
Yeah, maybe an outhouse. By golly, the next time I'm going to say that. On the front is a vest. This vest is called a Buoyancy Compensator, and it has an air bladder in it that inflates and deflates. And that helps you rise to the surface and then come back down. If you want to come up to the surface, which you do under certain guidelines, you inflate that and you'll float to the top. And then when you want to descend to the bottom, you let the air out and it'll let you go down.
So the gas does some of the work for you, so you don't have to physically propel yourself.
It does. You don't have to fill that manually. On my BC, I also carry a pair of scissors. I carry a marking buoy. I might find something I want to return to. I can tie this on it, let go of it, it'll go to the surface. I can follow it up and use compass readings to return to that spot. I also carry a knife. Did I mention fishing gear was the reason for that scissors? You can get entangled in fishing gear, and a knife is not a good way to get out of it. It is better to clip it. The third thing about this unit you're looking at is one piece, is the regulator here on the top. The second stage is on here. It takes that 3,000 pounds of air and reduces it down to the pressure that you need to breathe. And that changes. If you're just under the surface, it's about 14 pounds per square foot, which is what you and I breathe. And when you're at the bottom, there's a lot more pressure. The regulator adjusts that pressure so you get it at the right amount of pressure. You feel no pressure when you're diving at depth because of the way the regulator works.
Would you feel the pressure on your body?
You do not feel any pressure. Okay. You are weightless when you're in the water.
Oh, cool.
Finally, you need to have something to keep you warm, which the wetsuit is all about, and then enough weight. This gets to be substantial to carry all that to sink all that equipment to the bottom. As a safety matter, you always dive in pairs, and if you dive at the Iowa Great Lakes, you must carry a dive flag to warn the boaters in the area that there is a diver in the water underneath you.
So people are driving around in their boats and they see one of those. Are they supposed to stay 50 feet away?
They are indeed, yeah. Divers will probably be far enough below that there won't be an issue, but still there is a requirement for that safety. This is complicated equipment in some ways. For instance, if you are underwater and your mask comes loose or comes off, you would need to know how to get the air out of it so you can see again. If the regulator here, which is what you're breathing through, and that's over here, you put this in your mouth and you inhale and exhale. If that gets knocked out of your mouth, or you perhaps take it off for some event or some feature, you need to be able to get the water out of that so that your first breath is going to be water. Or excuse me, going to be air. And you need to know how to do that. So you can't take this on as a light hobby. You need to be professionally trained. And fortunately for all of us that live here at Westlake Okoboji, the current dive shop is at OBW, Okoboji Boat Works, and you can learn how to use this equipment, and you will enjoy diving, and you'll be safe, and you'll find it to be a fun hobby. If it's a little self-selective, if you don't swim or you're claustrophobic, it perhaps isn't for you, but otherwise it's a good hobby. Now, the next question might become, what does the bottom of the lake look like?
Absolutely, that's one of the questions that we're getting.
And we had a question also come up, is Audrey asked, is the water murky when diving down deep into Lake Okoboji?
Oh, yeah, let's get to that.
Okay, well, the clearest water in the lake is the deepest water in the lake. If you get below the thermocline, and many of us who live here know that there is a layer in the lake that's below which it stays the same temperature year round. Above changes with the temperature of the surface.
So there's warm water on the surface and cold water on the bottom.
Below that thermocline, the water is the clearest water in the lake. A light's beam may penetrate 80 feet when you're down below the thermocline, but it's also very dark. Light doesn't penetrate below 66 feet in Okoboji, so you have to carry lights to be in that depth.
Carry a flashlight. Is that on your equipment there?
I don't have any lighting equipment here, but I typically carry 3 lights. A main light, which is a large beam, the kind of thing you want to have if you were out in the country walking. I carry a second one in a reachable pocket, so that in case my first one fails, I can reach for it. And then we often carry a third light that's a small beacon that's suspended from the regulator so that other divers know where you are. It floats and it flashes and it tells you where you are. But let me finish telling you about the light down there. Because the water is clear, that's pretty cool, but you won't see anything your light beam doesn't strike. So you could pass within a few feet of the Queen Mary and never know it was there if your light didn't shine on it.
Though, right?
Say again.
You would hear it?
I don't know. Well, if the Queen Mary was running, you'd hear it.
Yeah.
Let's see. I was going to tell you a little bit about what the bottom of the lake looks like. It varies by the depth and the location you are in the lake. Now, much of it looks like a vast sunken beach, an extension perhaps of Terrace Park Beach. You will see nothing ahead of you but sand, and then there'll be an occasional stone. There may be a fishing rod. You might find a boat anchor, but mostly it looks like a vast sunken beach. Other parts of the bottom of the lake are covered with tumbled stone, the kind of stone that's familiar to all of us who live here. North of Gold Point State Park is a good example. There's a huge reef there. It's stone covered, and as far as you can see when you're underwater, you will see nothing but stones. Parts of the lake are covered with plant life. A good example would be Miller's Bay, where grasses grow 6, 10, 12 feet tall. Sometimes they might approach the surface. Those are wonderful nurseries for the panfish, the perch, the bluegill, the bass that we catch. That's their purpose, and they produce a lot of fish. And then parts of the lake, especially the deeper parts, are covered with a layer of muck. This muck can be a few inches thick. At the very deepest part of the lake, this muck is about 3 or 4 feet deep. I have seen divers settle into that muck thinking it was the solid bottom and struggle to get themselves free.
It's like almost when you go into a wetland, sometimes the mud sucks you up.
Exactly. That muck is thick enough and soft enough to hide anything that drops into it. So you would not look or search for any kind of recoverable artifact in that kind of muck, because it would disappear below, like you might drop a quarter on a snow pile. Go to the bottom and you'll never see it.
So tell us about you see diving underwater is like a treasure hunt?
I do like to say that. You've read some of my writing. Whenever I tell everybody who will listen that diving Westlake Okoboji is a treasure hunt, because you never know what you're going to run across. The lake has been used for recreation, for transportation, for ice harvesting. It's been used for a shortcut across the ice in the wintertime. And all of that traffic means that people, during all that traffic, people have dropped things on the bottom. Some of them have even been placed down there intentionally. So every dive is the opportunity to come back with some kind of interesting find or discovery. Now, if it drops into the deepest part of the lake, as we mentioned, it'll be gone. But if it drops on some of that open sand or on those rocks, you'll find some very nice treasures. And I brought some this morning.
Oh, wonderful. What do you have there?
One always wonders how the boats who lost these propellers got back to shore. But they make very fine little trophies. This one sits on a prominent place in my house.
So you probably cleaned those off, right?
I did not have this one cleaned, but I had this one polished. I thought I might never see another one like that again. The lake also is covered with the things that you might expect and are always disappointing to divers. Beer bottles and beer cans. Those aluminum cans last forever. There used to be an ecology dive here at the lake, sponsored by the dive shop, to clean that stuff up. Those things are down there and we go buy them. So are the soda and beer bottles of modern production. You can see them right away and you don't bring them back. The lake has also got anchors in it. This is a small, just a sample of more than 4 dozen anchors that I have collected on the bottom of the lake.
You find them more in one location than another?
You find them under fishing boats. So if you've seen a group of fishermen in some part of the lake, for instance around Gold Point State Park, you know that you can go there, or if you're lucky, you will come back with an anchor or two. This might be kind of interesting. As an aside, when you find an anchor like this, also on my BC, I carry clips, little snap rings. And there'll be some part of every anchor that you can snap onto your BC, add a little extra air to it, so it compensates not only for your nest and buoyancy needs, but
the gas adjuster.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then you just,
Buoyancy.
and rather than have it in your hands that you want to swim with or pick up things, it will hang from you and you can carry it to the surface.
Wow.
Then these are some of the other collectibles from the bottom of the lake. I have no idea where this china came from, but I do know that we use this in our kitchen today.
Really?
Yes, and glassware is not uncommon at all. If you go to the Maritime Museum and look at the scuba diving display, you'll see lots more glassware. I can't hardly pass up blob top bottles. They come back. I carry with me when I'm treasure hunting. I'll carry a mesh bag like you might do your laundry in, and with that bag I'll just collect these and bring them
So
back.
how old might those bottles be?
Well, I don't know. Some of these, I don't know that. That's not my expertise. But I have some bottles that have embossed stamping on them that indicate they were made before Prohibition. There's a label on them that's put in the glass. I'm not sure what that's all about, but who knew that they made those kinds of things?
And then Audrey also asked, how deep is the deepest part of the lake? Do you know?
Yeah, I do know. I have been down there. The deepest part of the lake is 138 feet officially. I believe if I take my regulator, which tells me the depth, one of the 3 gauges on that regulator, I bet I get closer to 140 feet, but the soundings wouldn't come back from that. It's dark down there, and there's no real purpose to dive that deep. I've done so on training and exploring dives, but I think that's the last place a diver to Okoboji would want to spend any time.
Just because it's so dark?
It's because it's dark, because it's cold, and because there's nothing there to see. The surface there looks a little bit like maybe a moonscape, because it's pretty much flat with little potholes that are probably strikes of something that's settled down below that. It's just not very appealing at all.
Is there a part of the lake that's the most favorite place that you like to go to?
Well, there are several important dive sites in West Lake Okoboji that I would hate divers to come here to miss. Probably the most popular right now is a 1935 Ford truck that sits out in front of the amusement park in about 22 feet of water. It's about 300 yards from shore. It was used in the 40s as an ice harvesting truck. They would carry equipment out, and they would also bring equipment back, bring ice back with it. Although most of the ice was pushed to shore. Anyway, that the truck was on a slab of ice that broke free from the main portion of ice, and the weight of the truck tipped that slab and dropped it to the bottom of the lake, and it's there and is dived frequently now. For years, it was thought that it had rusted away, and then a friend of mine, her name was Debbie Screen, she's from Spare Lake, Iowa, stumbled across it in about 2000, I think. The date you wouldn't want to hold me to today without my notes. It was then Jim Koenig, another local diver, found it and affixed its location, and since then I've taken photographs of it. There are at least 5 boats on the bottom of West Lake Okoboji. Most of them have names. There is one not far from where we are, down here in Browns Bay. There's one off of Atwell Point. There's one near Fort Dodge Point.
And so are they recently, or they go way back?
Oh, these boats are old boats. The one off Atwell Point has to be a Hafer from the 1920s. It was it caught fire and burned, settled to the bottom there, undiscovered for about 40 years, and then divers discovered it. The boat, unfortunately, was badly looted almost immediately. Among the group of divers are those treasure hunters and, can I say, looters that looking for souvenirs. The propeller, the wheel, the chrome and brass pieces were all stripped from.
So that brings us to a question: is that legal? If you find something?
Well, I'm not sure if it's legal. I would guess it's finders keepers, as long as it doesn't break the surface, at which point it would become the DNRs.
So I suppose that's something for us to research.
Yeah, I would hope I've become a naturalist in a way, because I don't want anybody to touch any of the features that are on the bottom of the lake. There is also a tower on the bottom of the lake, not far from where we're standing.
A tower? What kind of tower?
This is a wooden structure. Its assembly resembles a rural field windmill, only it's built out of heavy timber. It's 15 feet tall. It holds upright a steel, an iron pipe in the center with an 8-inch in diameter pipe, and it's weighted down with stone. It was built for the town of Milford that needed a reliable water supply in 1917. The tower was built out here about 300 yards from shore on the ice in the spring, and there was a pipeline that came to shore with flexible joints, and once it was all assembled, the ice was cut, the tower and the pipeline was lowered to the bottom of the lake. The pump house where we're standing now, or behind where we're standing now, is where that water was drawn. Actually, this is 3 generations later, but the location is still used. But that tower is a very popular dive site. It's close to shore. It's an easy shore dive. The water is typically pretty clear there. It's an interesting.
And so what makes the tower so interesting? Does it attract fish?
It does attract fish. Near the surface, near the top part, you will find schools of bluegill that patrol, that swim around it. A little lower, you'll find crappies, but not so many. At the bottom, walleye patrol the bottom. They make swimming circles around it. And then the walleye, the northern and the muskie will visit that as a hunting ground and a feeding. And then inside of the tower where the rocks are, there's other life, snails, crawdads, do I say? Is that what they're called in the water? Crayfish, those kinds of things, and little tiny fish in among the rocks.
It's a whole ecosystem.
It is indeed. It is indeed, and it was placed there on purpose. It was just very cool. The tower, as far as I know, hasn't been used since the 40s. There are newer pipelines out there now, but it stands as a historic marker of what was once done to get water to Milford, and a way of architecture and design at the time.
So we're probably almost to the end of our time. If we don't have any more questions,
We've got a few questions actually.
I'd love to answer.
So Erica Larson asked, "What got you interested in diving?"
Oh, Erica must. I wonder if I know Erica. I have been a diver ever since the 1956 television adventure series Sea Hunt. It was your super action hero at the time. Mike Nelson solved all of the perils and problems of the community where he lived by donning a scuba tank and rescuing the city, much like a superhero of the comic book era does now. The actor who played that was Lloyd Bridges.
Oh, another Lloyd.
Another Lloyd, that's right. And as soon I was growing up in Winterset, Iowa, and as soon as I saw that television show in '56 of him diving through clear water, rescuing the town from evil deeds, I knew I wanted to be a scuba. it took a long time for me actually to get wet. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't get started diving until 1980.
Did you retire first?
No, when I left college and went to work in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, I was married, I was raising a family. It always seemed like somebody at my house needed sneakers or tennis shoes more than I can justify fins. But eventually, I got all that money in a pile, and here I am.
Let's see, what other questions do we have?
Jan asked, do you ever see muskies in the water when you dive that have threatened you?
No. I maybe have seen a muskie. I see lots of large carp. What you're most likely to see are northerns. And I've tried to approach them to make their photographs. But fish decide on the distance of safe social distancing they want, and you will not penetrate that. So you can go to them, and you won't chase them away. They're very curious fish, but they will stay away. You will never catch them. But no, I have never been threatened by fish in this water. I have been startled by large fish in other dive sites.
So we haven't talked much about you're a photographer too. So and that's a lot of what you do underwater is taking pictures.
I was a news photographer for the paper in Sioux Falls, and I didn't realize when I got certified to dive that underwater photography was going to be a possibility. But the first time I was on the bottom of West Lake Okoboji, I knew I could take pictures. And so I began taking pictures. And I've taken photographs of all the sites that we've talked about. I've taken photographs of the fish that are down there and fish nesting.
Where can people see your photographs?
Well, I guess right
gallery?
now there isn't a gallery. There have been galleries. I think if you look for underwater photographs on Facebook, you'll find a few of my photographs there to give you sort of an idea. I don't have a formal page up anymore. It takes a little maintenance to do that, and I've gotten a little lazy, I think. But I'm hoping that in the next 12 months there'll be a book of my underwater photographs.
Great.
You're the first to hear that officially, but I hope that
First on Facebook Friday Live.
yes, I hope that there'll be a book collection of those photographs and the stories that go with them. Not my stories, but the stories of the boats and the tower and the other things we talked about.
We have more questions?
And then the last question here from Audrey is, where is the favorite place that he's ever gone diving?
My
place
favorite
you've never
place?
gone.
Oh yes. Oh, that I've never gone diving?
No, that you have ever gone
that you
diving.
have- Never gone.
Well,
Okay.
what a great way for us to end this little interview, because my favorite place of every place I've dived is right here in West Lake Okoboji. And that's because of what I've already mentioned. Every dive in this lake has the opportunity to come back with a collectible find that you can put on the mantle and tell people, that's my memory.
Every dive is a new experience.
Every dive, yes, every dive. Every dive here is a new experience and a worthwhile lesson.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and thanks so much for Lloyd for being so generous. And have a beautiful weekend here at West Okoboji, and maybe look for some of your photographs online, and maybe some of the things you have are in the Maritime Museum.
No, none of my things are in the Maritime, but there is a nice scuba display in the Maritime that will give you a feel for what it is we talked about here this morning.
Okay, well thank you so much. Everybody have a great weekend.
Bye.